The grand hall of the Crystal Palace glowed under soft lights. Tall windows let in the shine of 2 moons, and the walls were built of clear stone that caught every color in the room. The alien kingdom was holding its yearly celebration, and nobles from many worlds had gathered. The air was filled with voices, music, and the sound of laughter. At the center of it all sat Princess Myra. She was young, graceful, and admired by everyone. Her dress shimmered like flowing silver, and her crown of light stones rested gently on her dark hair. Though she looked calm, her heart carried a quiet loneliness. She had grown up surrounded by praise, but no one around her ever felt close. Nobles came to impress her, lords bowed before her, yet none spoke to her heart. The hall was already filled with alien nobles. Tall figures with shining skin, others with wings, and many dressed in clothes covered in jewels. They moved with pride, each trying to show their importance. Myra watched them with polite eyes but felt distant, as if she were behind a glass wall. Then, the great doors at the end of the hall opened. Everyone turned to look. A human warrior walked inside. He was not dressed like the others. He wore no jewels, no bright colors. His armor was simple, made of dull metal, but strong. His steps were steady and quiet. He carried no crown, no weapon to show off, only a calm strength that made the hall fall silent. His name was Aaron. Myra's eyes followed him the instant he stepped into the hall. She had seen many lords before, but this was different. Her heart gave a strange, soft beat, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The whispers began at once. "A human? Here," one noble muttered. "Look at his clothes, so plain," another said with a laugh. "Humans are known for surviving, not for grace," added a third voice. But Aaron did not react. He walked slowly to the front, bowed his head to the king and queen, and stood quietly at the side. There was no arrogance in him, no need to impress. His silence spoke more than the loud voices around him. Myra's gaze stayed on him. She noticed his eyes calm, clear, not filled with pride like the others. When he looked around the hall, his eyes did not judge or demand. They simply saw, and accepted. For the first time, Myra felt as if someone was not looking at her crown or her throne, but at her as a person. The feast began. Food was served, and music rose again. Nobles gathered in groups, boasting of battles or wealth. Aaron sat quietly at the long table, eating with simple manners. He spoke a little with those around him, always polite, but he never raised his voice. When servants passed, he thanked them with a smile. Myra noticed this small detail. None of the nobles ever thanked the servants, they acted as if kindness was below them. Yet the human warrior did it naturally, without thought. Her heart stirred again. The night grew deeper, and the hall filled with laughter and dance. Myra was asked many times to join, but she gently refused. Her mind was not with the music. Her thoughts were with the quiet warrior who seemed so different from all the others. From her seat on the throne, she looked across the hall once more. Aaron was sitting alone now, looking up at the windows where the moons shone through. He looked almost peaceful, as if the noise of the hall did not touch him. For a brief moment, his eyes lifted and met hers. Myra felt her breath stop. It was only a second, but it felt endless. In that instant, she knew her life had changed. She had never spoken to him, never heard his voice, yet her heart was no longer her own. Something inside her had chosen, without asking her mind for permission. She lowered her gaze quickly, her cheeks warm. The hall was still loud, but to her it felt silent. The voices of nobles no longer reached her ears. All she could hear was the steady beat of her heart. That night, when the celebration ended and the guests left, Myra returned to her chambers. She removed her crown, placed it on the table, and sat by the window. The moons were still shining outside. Her maids thought she would be tired, but she was wide awake. She closed her eyes and saw the moment again, the human warrior stepping through the grand doors, his calm eyes meeting hers. She whispered softly to herself, words only the stars could hear. The instant he walked into the hall, my heart changed. And so began a story that neither the nobles, nor the kingdom, nor even Myra herself had expected. The morning after the celebration, the palace seemed quieter. The music had faded, the lights of the grand hall were dim, and most guests were resting after the long night. But Princess Myra had not slept well. Her heart was restless, and her thoughts returned again and again to the human warrior who had walked into the hall so calmly. She sat near her window, watching the twin suns rise over the crystal city. The sky turned shades of gold and blue, yet she hardly noticed. Her mind was filled with questions. Who was he? Why had her heart reacted in such a way? She had seen many noble faces before, but none stayed in her thoughts like his. Later in the day, Myra entered the council chamber with her father, the king. The chamber was filled with nobles, speaking about trade and treaties. Myra listened politely, but her attention was caught when she saw Aaron again. He stood at the side of the room, quiet as before, listening but not speaking. The nobles did not treat him with respect. Some spoke over him, others ignored his presence completely. A few whispered things like, "Why is a human allowed in such matters, and their kind is simple, what can they add here?" But Aaron did not answer their whispers with anger. He stood still, his hands behind his back, watching everything calmly. He looked as if he carried no pride, only patience. Myra felt her chest warm again. It was rare to see anyone in the council hall without the need to prove themselves. When the meeting ended, Myra walked slowly through the palace gardens. The gardens were quiet, filled with tall silver trees and glowing flowers. She often came here when she wanted to escape the noise of the palace. As she walked, she noticed someone ahead, standing near the fountain. It was Aaron. He turned when he heard her steps. For a moment, both were silent. Myra felt her heart beat faster, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Do you find our gardens peaceful?" she asked softly. Aaron bowed his head slightly. "Yes, Princess. They remind me of the fields of my home. Not the same colors, but the same feeling of life." His voice was steady and gentle. Myra felt it touch her like music. She smiled, curious. "Your home. Earth, is it not? Tell me about it." Aaron looked toward the fountain. "It is a simple world. Green fields, blue oceans, and skies that change with storms and sun. It is not rich like this place, but it is alive. Families laugh together, children run through the grass, and even in hardship, people keep hope." Myra listened carefully. No noble in her palace ever spoke of such things. They spoke of riches, armies, and pride. But Aaron spoke of laughter, storms, and hope. His words painted pictures in her mind. She could almost hear the ocean waves he described, though she had never seen such a sea. "Do you not miss it?" she asked softly. "I do," he admitted. "But I came here for a reason. To honor the treaty, and to show that humans can be trusted. My world may be far, but peace between our people is worth the distance." Myra lowered her eyes. His words were not meant to charm her, yet they felt honest and strong. She felt her heart stir again. For a while, they walked through the garden together. Aaron did not try to impress her with grand stories. Instead, he pointed out the flowers, asking their names, and Myra told him. She found herself laughing softly when he mispronounced some of the alien names. She had never laughed so freely with any of the nobles. When they reached the gate of the garden, Aaron stopped. "Princess, I must not take more of your time." Myra wanted to tell him to stay, but she knew it was not proper. She simply nodded, though her eyes lingered on him. "You have taken none of my time." You have given me something instead. Aaron looked puzzled. And what is that? Myra turned away slightly, her cheeks warm. Peace. She walked back to the palace, her heart lighter than before. But peace did not last long. That evening, whispers began to move through the halls. Servants had seen the princess walking with the human warrior. Nobles began to murmur in corners. Unthinkable, said one. She should not lower herself, said another. He is not of our kind, whispered a third. Myra heard the whispers, but she did not let them reach her heart. She remembered his steady eyes, his calm words, and the way he spoke of hope. Something told her that this bond was only the beginning. That night, as she sat alone in her chamber, she looked out at the twin moons again. Her heart whispered to her, stronger than before. The human is different. He does not see my crown. He sees me. And though she tried to quiet the thought, her heart refused to listen. It beat faster, carrying her towards something unknown, something she had never felt before. Days passed after Myra's quiet walk in the garden with Aaron, but the memory of it stayed strong in her heart. She had heard many voices since then, nobles boasting, lords demanding, and council members arguing. Yet in her mind, she only remembered the human steady voice, speaking of oceans, fields, and hope. The palace was a place of constant activity. Every day brought new visitors, merchants, or foreign envoys. Myra often walked through the halls with a graceful smile, but inside she longed for something more. She felt surrounded by noise, yet her heart searched for silence, the kind of silence she had felt beside Aaron in the garden. One evening, when the suns were low and the sky was painted in gold and violet, Myra returned to the gardens. She had told no one, not even her maids. The silver leaves of the tall trees rustled gently in the wind, and the glowing flowers lit the pathways like tiny stars. It was her favorite place, and tonight, she hoped she would not be alone. As if her heart's wish had been answered, she saw Aaron near the fountain once again. He stood with his hands behind his back, gazing at the water as though deep in thought. Myra approached softly. You seem to enjoy this place, she said. Aaron turned and bowed slightly. It is peaceful, princess. Peace is rare in palaces. Myra smiled, feeling her heart lift. That is true. Sometimes even I forget what peace feels like. They walked slowly along the path, side by side. Myra noticed that, unlike the nobles, Aaron did not rush to fill the silence with words. He walked calmly, letting the sound of the fountain and the wind speak for them. She found the silence comfortable, as if she did not need to pretend before him. At last, she asked, "Do you ever feel lonely here?" Aaron thought for a moment before answering. Sometimes. But loneliness is not always heavy. It gives space to think. And I remind myself why I came here, not for myself, but for peace between our worlds. Myra turned her eyes to him. And if you had the choice, would you go back to Earth? Yes, he said softly. I would see the oceans again, hear the laughter of my people, walk on familiar soil. But if my staying here helps even a little, then it is worth the distance. Myra felt something stir in her chest. His words were not spoken like a warrior trying to show courage. They were spoken like a man who had learned to carry duty with patience. They reached a bench under a tree, where glowing vines curled around the branches. Myra sat down, and Aaron stood near, as if unsure if he should join her. She looked up at him with gentle eyes. Sit, please. You are not a stranger here. He sat, though with respectful distance. Myra folded her hands on her lap. The nobles do not treat you kindly, she said quietly. I hear their whispers. Does it trouble you? Aaron shook his head. Whispers cannot harm me. I know who I am. I do not need their approval. Myra studied him. The nobles she knew lived for approval, for pride, for titles. Yet here was a man with none of those, and still he stood taller than them all in her eyes. "Tell me," she asked softly, "when you spoke of children laughing on earth, do you have family there?" Aaron's eyes softened. "Yes. A mother who smiles even in hardship. A father who taught me that strength is not in fists but in patience. And younger ones who run through the fields, chasing the wind. I miss them, but they are part of why I am here. If peace lasts, they will live without fear." Myra's heart warmed at his words. She imagined the simple life he described: fields, laughter, family. It sounded more real, more alive, than all the riches of her palace. For a while, they sat in silence again, listening to the night birds singing. Myra's eyes lingered on the stars above. "I have always been surrounded by people," she said quietly. "Yet I have always felt alone. But when I sit here with you, I do not feel that way." Aaron looked at her, his expression calm, yet his eyes carried a gentle light. He did not answer with grand words. He only said, "Then I am glad." The simplicity of his reply touched her more than any poem or promise could have. She lowered her eyes, her cheeks warming. For the first time, she realized she was no longer speaking as a princess to a warrior. She was speaking as Myra, simply Myra, to someone who saw her beyond her crown. The sound of footsteps broke the moment. Servants appeared at the edge of the garden, carrying lanterns. Myra stood quickly, knowing they would wonder at her presence with Aaron. She looked at him one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Aaron, for reminding me that peace is not only for nations, it can be in hearts too." He bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess, for listening." Myra walked back toward the palace, her heart beating fast. She knew the whispers would grow stronger if anyone saw them together. Yet deep inside, she also knew the truth: this bond was no longer something she could ignore. The instant the human warrior had stepped into the grand hall, her heart had changed. And now, every word, every glance, every quiet moment only made that change stronger. The days that followed carried a quiet tension through the palace. Whispers grew louder. Nobles who once ignored Aaron now spoke of him more often, their words filled with doubt and jealousy. They wondered why the human was present in council meetings, why he was seen in the gardens, and most of all why the princess herself seemed kinder whenever he was near. Myra heard the whispers, but she tried not to let them trouble her. She told herself that whispers were only air. Still, her heart knew the truth: the nobles did not accept Aaron. They saw him as an outsider, unworthy of standing among them. One morning, a grand council meeting was called. The hall was filled with the most powerful lords of the kingdom, their voices already rising before the king had arrived. Myra entered with grace, her silver gown flowing like water. She took her seat beside the queen, her eyes sweeping the hall. And there, at the side as always, stood Aaron. His armor was plain, his presence quiet, yet Myra felt her chest steady when she saw him. The council began with talks of trade, ships, and treaties. For a while, it was the same as every other meeting: endless words, endless pride. But then one noble, tall and dressed in shining red robes, rose from his seat. His voice was sharp as he spoke. "My king, my queen," he began, "and Princess Myra. I must ask, why is a human warrior present in this chamber? Our council is for nobles of the crown, not for simple wanderers from distant worlds." A ripple of agreement spread through the hall. Many nobles nodded, some murmured words of support. Myra's heart tightened. She looked at Aaron, wondering how he would react. But he did not flinch. His eyes stayed calm, his hands still folded behind his back. The noble in red continued, "Humans are known for surviving, yes, but survival is not greatness. What wisdom can one such as him bring to us? He should sit among soldiers, not stand in the hall of kings." The words stung Myra. She wanted to rise, to defend him, but before she could, Aaron stepped forward. He bowed his head slightly, showing respect before he spoke. "My lord," he said in a steady voice, "you are right. I am not a noble, nor do I wear jewels or carry titles. I am only a man who came to honor peace." The hall grew quiet. Every noble turned their eyes to him. Aaron went on, "I do not seek a place among you for pride. I stand here because my people and your people have chosen peace. If my presence helps remind us of that choice, then I am glad. If not, then I will step aside." His words were simple, without anger, without defense. Yet in their simplicity was a strength that Myra felt deeply. He did not fight the noble's pride with pride of his own. He answered with humility, and that humility was stronger than any sharp word. The noble in red frowned, unsure how to respond. Another noble whispered, "He speaks with more calm than most of us." Myra could not stop herself from smiling faintly. She felt proud, not only as a princess but as Myra, a woman whose heart had already chosen him. She thought to herself, "He does not need to prove himself. His truth is enough." The council ended without further challenge, though the air was thick with unspoken words. When Myra left the chamber, she walked slowly, hoping Aaron would follow. And he did. In the quiet hallway, she turned to him. "You did not let their words touch you," she said softly. Aaron shook his head. "Words are only sound, princess. If I let every sound move me, I would lose myself." Myra's eyes softened. "Still, I felt anger when they spoke. I wanted to defend you." He looked at her with calm eyes. "You do not need to. The truth defends itself." Her heart ached at his quiet strength. She wished she could speak her feelings, tell him what had been growing inside her since the first moment she saw him. But duty held her back. Instead, she simply said, "You are different from all of them, Aaron. And I am glad for it." He bowed his head. "And I am glad, princess, that you see me at all." The words stayed with her long after they parted. That night, as she sat in her chamber, Myra thought of the council again. She remembered the noble's harsh tone, the whispers in the hall, the pride in their eyes. And then she remembered Aaron's calm voice, his quiet strength, his gentle answer. Her heart told her what her mind tried to deny: the more they challenged him, the more she admired him. The instant the human warrior had stepped into the grand hall, her heart had changed. And now, in the face of doubt and whispers, that change only grew stronger. The palace was never truly quiet. Even at night, footsteps echoed in the halls, and whispers flowed through corners like shadows. Princess Myra had grown used to this. Every corner carried secrets, every word had meaning. But one evening, as she walked alone past the council chambers, she heard something that froze her in place. Inside the chamber, two nobles spoke in low voices. Their words slipped through the door like threads. "This treaty with the humans must not last," one said sharply. "They are too simple, too weak. Our kingdom gains nothing from this peace." Another replied, "The king may believe in it, but if we press the council, we can end it. Once the treaty is broken, the humans will have no place here. Their warrior will be forced to leave with the rest." Myra's breath caught. She leaned closer, her heart beating fast. The voices continued. "The princess has grown too close to the human," one whispered. "It cannot be allowed. If she speaks in his favor, we must silence her voice in council." Myra pulled back, her chest tight. She had heard enough. The nobles were planning to break the treaty, and worse, they wanted to silence her support for Aaron. For the first time, fear touched her heart, not for herself, but for the human warrior who had come in peace. That night, she could not rest. She paced her chamber, the moon shining coldly outside her window. Her mind was filled with questions. Should she tell her father? Should she confront the nobles? Or should she speak to Aaron, who deserved to know the truth? At last, her heart made the choice. She sent a quiet message to Aaron, asking him to meet her in the garden. When she arrived, the silver trees glowed gently in the moonlight. Aaron was already there, standing by the fountain as if he had been waiting. His calm presence eased her heart, though the weight of what she had heard pressed heavily on her. "Princess," he greeted with a bow. "Please," she said quickly, her voice softer than usual, "tonight do not call me princess. Call me Myra." Aaron looked at her carefully, then nodded. "Very well, Myra." She felt warmth in her chest hearing her name spoken by him alone. But she quickly returned to the reason she had called him. "I overheard something today. The nobles are planning to end the treaty. If they succeed, you and your people will be forced to leave. The peace you came here to protect will be broken." Aaron listened quietly. His eyes did not widen in anger or fear. He only asked, "And what will you do?" Myra's voice trembled. "I want to fight for peace, but the nobles plan to silence me. They believe I stand too close to you." For a long moment, Aaron was silent. Then he said, "Myra, peace cannot rest on one voice alone. If your people choose to end it, I cannot stop them. I came here only to show goodwill, not to force my presence." Her heart ached at his words. "But do you not care? Do you not wish to remain?" He looked at her, his eyes calm but filled with quiet depth. "I care. More than I can say. But what I wish is not as important as what is right. And what is right is for you to choose freely, without fear." Tears touched her eyes, though she held them back. She had expected him to ask her to defend him, to beg her not to let the treaty fall. Instead, he placed the choice in her hands. It was trust, pure and unshaken. "Do what you believe is right," he said softly. "And whatever comes, I will accept it." Myra looked at him in silence. His humility broke something open in her heart. He was not like the nobles who clung to power, nor like lords who demanded loyalty. He was a man who trusted her, even when the future was uncertain. She whispered, "You do not make it easy for me, Aaron. The more you speak this way, the harder it is to think of you as only a guest in my kingdom." For a moment, his eyes softened, but he did not step closer, nor did he reach for her. He only bowed his head slightly. "Then think of me as you wish. I will not ask for more." The silence of the garden grew deep, filled only by the sound of the fountain. Myra's heart beat fast, but she knew she could not speak all that she felt not yet. Instead, she said, "I will not let the nobles win. I will speak when the time comes. For peace, and for what I believe in." Aaron gave a faint smile. "Then peace has hope." As she walked back to her chamber, Myra felt both heavy and light. Heavy, because she knew the path ahead would not be easy. Light, because she knew she was not walking it alone. The instant the human warrior had stepped into the grand hall, her heart had changed. And now, that change gave her the courage to face the danger ahead. The day of decision arrived. The grand hall of the council was filled with nobles from across the kingdom. They wore bright robes and shining crowns, their voices rising and falling like restless waves. The matter of the treaty with the humans was now to be decided. Some nobles were eager to end it, believing humans brought little value. Others remained silent, unwilling to oppose the louder voices. Princess Myra entered with calm steps, her silver gown trailing behind her. She took her seat beside the queen, though her heart beat fast. She knew what was at stake. If the nobles won, the treaty would end, and Aaron would be forced to leave. Her eyes moved across the hall until they found him. Aaron stood at the side, not in the seat of honor, not even near the council table. He stood quietly in his simple armor, watching, listening, his presence steady like a stone in a river. Myra felt strength flow into her at the sight. The meeting began. A noble in red rose to speak first, the same one who had challenged Aaron before. His voice was sharp. This treaty has brought us nothing but weakness. Humans are not like us. They have no great wealth, no advanced ships, no powers to add to our kingdom. Why should we bind ourselves to them? Let us end this agreement and turn our strength toward greater allies. A wave of agreement moved through the hall. Nobles nodded, some clapped their hands on the table. Others spoke quickly, each adding their own reasons. They are too simple. They have nothing to teach us. The princess grows too fond of their warrior. This clouds her judgment. Myra sat silently, her heart heavy. She could feel the weight of every word, every whisper. For a moment, she feared her voice would not be enough. Then, she remembered Aaron's words in the garden, "Do what you believe is right." She rose to her feet. The hall quieted. All eyes turned to her. "My lords," she began, her voice steady though her hands trembled slightly, hidden in her gown. "You speak of strength and wealth, of ships and power. But is that all we seek from our allies? Must we measure every bond by what riches it brings?" The hall was silent. Myra went on, her eyes shining. "When the humans came, they did not come with jewels or fleets. They came with open hands, seeking peace. They showed us not their power, but their kindness. They showed us not their riches, but their hope. And I ask you, are these not treasures greater than gold?" Murmurs filled the chamber. Some nobles shifted uneasily, while others frowned. The noble in red stood again. "Princess, your heart is kind, but you are young. Hope does not win battles. Kindness does not protect kingdoms." Myra looked at him firmly. "And what of pride, my lord? Has pride not destroyed kingdoms before? Has arrogance not broken treaties and brought sorrow? If we measure every ally by what they give us, then we will never know true friendship. The humans bring us something no other world has given: humility, courage, and the will to stand in peace even when they are mocked." Her words struck deep. For a moment, the hall was truly silent. Myra's eyes turned to Aaron. He stood still, his gaze calm, not claiming the moment as his own. His silence made her words stronger, as if his quiet presence was proof of everything she had said. The king leaned forward on his throne, his voice low but thoughtful. "My daughter speaks with truth. The measure of peace is not in jewels, but in trust. Perhaps we should remember that before we cast aside what we have built." The nobles whispered again, but their voices were less certain now. Some who had nodded before now looked unsure. Others glanced toward Aaron, as if seeing him truly for the first time. The noble in red tried once more. "But what of the risk? What if humans betray us?" It was Aaron who finally spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "My lord, if trust begins with fear, then peace cannot last. If you believe we are not worthy, then send me away. But do not end peace for the sake of pride. Let the treaty live or die on truth, not on whispers." His words were simple, yet they cut through the noise like a blade through cloth. For a long time, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the voices turned. One noble said, "The human speaks wisely." Another added, "The princess is right. Hope is not weakness." Soon more voices followed, until the hall carried less anger and more thought. The vote was called. When the decision came, it was clear: the treaty would remain. The humans would stay, and peace would continue. Myra let out a breath she had been holding. She turned her eyes toward Aaron once more. He gave no sign of triumph, no smile of victory. He only bowed his head slightly, as if to say, "This was never mine to claim." Her heart swelled with pride and something deeper. She had spoken for peace, but it was his quiet strength that had given her the courage. The nobles might not understand, but she knew the truth. The instant the human warrior had stepped into the grand hall, her heart had changed. And today, her voice had followed where her heart had already gone. The council's decision had been made, and the halls of the palace were finally calm. Peace remained between humans and the alien kingdom, though the nobles still whispered quietly among themselves. The grand hall no longer felt tense, but to Princess Myra, the past days had left a weight she could not shake. She walked to the garden as the twin moons rose, their silver light reflecting on the glowing flowers. Her gown brushed softly against the stone paths. Every corner of the garden carried a memory: her first walk with Aaron, the soft laughter at mispronounced flower names, the quiet words they had shared in the moonlight. She reached the fountain and found him waiting, as he had so often been. Aaron stood tall, calm as always, but Myra noticed a gentle warmth in his eyes. "Myra," he said softly, bowing his head. "Aaron," she replied, a small smile touching her lips. "Thank you, for standing beside me, even when it was hard. Even when the nobles tried to push us apart." Aaron's expression remained steady, but his voice carried sincerity. "You needed only to speak your heart. I could not have done more, nor should I have. Peace belongs to those who fight for it with truth, not with force." Myra stepped closer, the cool night air brushing against her face. She looked at him fully, without fear or hesitation. "There is more than peace I need to speak about," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Since the moment you walked into the grand hall, my heart has not been mine. I cannot hide it any longer. Aaron." He waited silently, his calm presence giving her courage. She took a deep breath. "I care for you. Not as a guest or a warrior, but as yourself. And I cannot imagine the palace, or my life, without you in it." Aaron's eyes softened, though his posture remained humble. "Myra, I came here only to honor peace. Yet from the first moment I saw you, I felt a bond one cannot explain. I have never known such warmth in any world. Your heart, it gives me purpose beyond my duty." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The moonlight reflected on Myra's eyes, and the fountain's water shimmered like tiny stars. No words were needed beyond what had been said. Finally, Aaron stepped closer, careful to respect her space. "If you will have me, I will stay not as a warrior of your court, but as myself. I will stand beside you, share your world, and honor your heart." Myra's smile grew, her cheeks warming. "Then we will face the world together," she said softly. "No whispers, no fear, no doubt can change what we have chosen." They walked together along the garden paths, side by side, each step a quiet promise. Myra felt a joy she had never known, a freedom beyond the responsibilities of royalty. And Aaron felt a peace he had never felt on earth, a sense of belonging that no battlefield or distant home had ever given him. As they reached a bench under a tree glowing with silver vines, Myra paused. "Do you think the nobles will ever understand us?" she asked, a playful note in her voice. Aaron smiled faintly. "Some may never understand. But that does not matter. What matters is the truth we share, and the peace we have built together." Myra nodded, feeling her heart swell. She had spent her life surrounded by people who sought power and wealth. Yet in the quiet strength of one human, she had found courage, kindness, and a love she had never imagined. They sat together on the bench, looking up at the twin moons. The stars sparkled across the sky, mirrored by the glowing flowers below. For the first time, Myra felt that the future was not only her duty, but her choice. And Aaron, beside her, felt that every step he had taken across the stars had led him here to this moment of calm, of hope, and of hearts united. "Aaron," Myra whispered, "I am yours. Not because of duty, not because of peace, but because my heart chose you." Aaron reached out, taking her hand gently. "And I am yours, Myra. My life, my heart, and my will are yours, as long as we stand together." The garden seemed to hold its breath as they sat in quiet companionship. The palace beyond the walls, the nobles, and their whispers, all faded into the night. Here, under the moons and among the glowing flowers, two hearts from different worlds had found each other. And in that quiet, simple moment, both knew that the instant the human warrior had walked into the grand hall had changed not only Myra's life but the future of two worlds. Together, they would face what came next not as princess and guest, but as Myra and Aaron, hearts united, strong in truth, hope, and love. The night carried on, gentle and full of promise. And for the first time in her life, Myra felt that everything she had ever hoped for had begun.